Into hyperspace. Another episode of All Things 3D. Today's episode is September 5th, 2014. Time is flying by. All Things 3D Week in Review. We're going to talk about some news items that happened this week, along with some helpful tips. I'm Chris, and this is my co-host Mike.
Hi,
And,
Mike. Wait a minute. We've got our friend,
Oh, who's our friend?
Andy. This is
Hi,
our
Andy.
new mascot. That's
Okay.
You remember he was riding on your shoulders in the banner page. So
That's right. All right.
Say hi. He's
Andy.
saying hi as well. Plus, I've changed my background. I am now in deep space.
Yes, you
Hope
are.
I can hold my breath long enough. So.
Well, they make 3D printers now in space that are space ready, so we're all set to go. So we are going to lead our listeners through this week a review. We'll start with some big news items. Today, or going on right now, is a global 3D printing event in London.
Yes.
So the
3D print show
in the UK. So big stuff going on in Europe and UK right now.
You know, it's interesting. I was not aware of this, but it appears that they have several events. They have one in London. There's another one, I think, in October. Yes, in Paris. And then they move on to New York in 2015, I think, in March. Move back to Berlin. So they're all over the world. They take a unique perspective. They both got technical, but it's more artistic and creative. And they also have an award show, and one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up is two of the people that we've had on in the past, Ultimaker as well as Jesse from Autodesk, they won. I'm assuming that the Ultimaker won Best 3D Printer, big plus for them. They actually won 2 awards, and Autodesk won Best Consumer Software. So hats off to them. Very cool. Obviously, they have other awards as well, but they have not updated their website yet. But that's where a lot of the people are at, except us. But we need to be back here manning the stations. So.
That's right. Yeah, and another shout out. This was released. Some news at the show. Big Rep, another company, an up and coming printer manufacturer, is making a huge printer, 53 cubic inch printer.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
Yeah,
wow, huh?
Yeah, some good looking parts coming off this. It's like any other printer. I like to go to these shows and see them in person before I purchase one. What I did notice is pretty hefty price tag.
Yeah, that was my next question. And plus, this one doesn't look. Didn't they not have an image on one of the website that was fully enclosed? That looks just like an open frame printer. Is that
not multi-extruder or anything. I mean, we're looking at a pretty bare bones printer for $39,000. You might be better served getting a Stratasys printer if this is all it is. I think they're going to have to step up their game here on marketing if they're going to anticipate selling any of these. This print looks like it has a little bit of support material down here.
Well, how large is it? I mean, if you're looking at this from here, it looks fairly large. What, about 4 feet tall?
There's nothing for scale, so I don't know. But I mean, you really, in all reality, to scale up a printer, the ideas behind these printers now, they're so scalable. It really doesn't require very much as far as equipment to make a printer that large. So I don't know how they're justifying a $39,000 price tag on this, but I'm sure if we have them on the show, they can. Excuse me, 53 cubic foot build volume, not 53 cubic inch. So it's 1.3 cubic meters. So 27 times that of a typical Makerbot replicator is what this article says.
Yeah, but that's almost 27 times the price. Just kidding. But again, what are you getting for it? There it is. It's fully enclosed.
Yeah, so that one does look a little bit more.
Okay, so is that the $39,000 one, the Pro there?
That's got to be.
I would have to think so. Well, that
that is a big printer, huh?
It's a big printer and it's fully enclosed. I mean, there might be some value in that. But like you said, it's a single extruder and that means very large parts with a lot of support if needed. If you notice, a lot of the parts they're demonstrating are extruding from bottom up without supports. So how intricate of a component, and I have to agree with you. Why not get a Stratasys if you get into that? But who knows? But if you remember last week we talked about that 5-foot Delta printer that was printing ceramic.
Yeah, 15-foot. Oh no, you're talking about the 5-footer.
Yeah, not the part daddy.
Not the part daddy.
But even a 5-foot, how much would a Delta printer like that? Now I think that was custom made, but that could probably be made for maybe $5,000-$6,000, and still get very large parts. So like we know already, you can size up a Delta printer much easier with less materials than you can with a Cartesian printer. So
that's right. Yeah, because they require less to actually build even in the first place. So that's one of the advantages. So on to some bigger news, not some bigger news, but some kind of big news is Bree is stepping down from his CEO position at Makerbot. So that was kind of a big deal. That happened yesterday.
Yeah, I thought that you might pick that one up. I thought I'd just try and look for other things. Obviously, that has been in the news.
Right.
I have a love-hate relationship with Makerbot, and I listened to him, like I said, on Science Friday, and I really wasn't impressed with his ability to speak. Not that I speak very well, but I just didn't feel like, a lot of people have complained that he hasn't done anything innovative or original, that he has borrowed a lot, and in some cases the term stolen has been used. But I think the big thing right now, and I don't know if there's anything behind this, a lot of the newer Generation 5 printers have gotten a lot of bad press or a lot of bad feedback from users that their hot end, their extruders don't work properly. And if you go out to Amazon and look up any of the new Generation 5, they've got like a 2 Amazon, and there's lots of feedback of a lot of people saying stay away. So again, I don't have any personal experience with this. I know that my Makerbot Replicator 2 works pretty well, and one of the items that I'm going to bring up later is some add-ons that I'm going to be putting in. But I'm wondering if that has anything to do with it. He's supposed to be moving into a new position and opening up a new innovative something or other. Maybe you can tell us more about that.
I don't know too much about it, but he is starting a new project for Stratasys, dubbed Innovation Workshop, according to the articles online.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
On LinkedIn, and I think there's a lot of people out there with the same feelings that you had, the love-hate relationship with Makerbot. I myself have no grudge against Bree. I think if anything, he was a visionary. He was a pioneer out front. Everybody's borrowing technology. That's an important thing to remember. And he may step on some people's toes, but he's not the only one. And you also have to remember that now Stratasys basically owns the company he used to own. But he was one of the first people to really make a competitor to a Stratasys machine, that was a commercial machine, that wasn't a do-it-yourself machine, where it was a working out of the box, at least as far as an American-made 3D printer. And so that, in that regard, he's somewhat of a visionary, and I wish him the best in Innovation Workshop, whatever he ends up doing. I think there's a lot of room for growth, obviously.
Yeah, well, you're always positive. The good thing is they're bringing in Jenny Lawton, who used to be the president, as the CEO now. I've heard some good things about her, and maybe she'll, it's like a lot of companies. You have the visionary who may not have the actual CEO chops, or want to be more of an evangelist, and they need to have somebody in there who can run the day-to-day operation. So
right.
Hats off to her. Okay, let's move on to the next item, and I will go ahead and bring up this fun item.
I love this one. I was
And
jealous that you picked this one.
well, they actually sent me Ultimaker, again, is in the news. If you remember, they have a website, Umagine, that I wouldn't say competes, is an alternative to what's the other one called?
Thingiverse.
Thingiverse. And we've had Eric as well as Sander talk about it. So I got this PR report, and it appears that it's already gone out to a lot of people, but essentially Jackie One, aka Valcro, has literally printed out a scale model of a Ducati 1199, and I know both have ridden motorcycles in the past. I've had two cafe-style bikes, so I am partial to this type of motorcycle to begin with. I never could afford a Ducati, but this is amazing. And I've had some scale models in the past, but he literally goes through the whole process of how he went about making it and then creating all the components. And again, like models, you essentially create parts in pieces and then you assemble it. And he goes through the whole process, and there on the bottom there it shows all the pieces that he went ahead and painted in enamels, acrylics, and lacquer paints in order to give it the brilliant appearance that it does. So a very cool product, and you can go out to Imagine right now, set up an account, and download this model and print it yourself.
And they have some beautiful pictures. They did a great job in the studio taking photos to make it look. When I saw it, I thought it was a full-size real bike or something, because I clicked on the link. Yeah, I got an email about it, and it looked like a real. I was like, what? They full size, and then they show a banana picture. Yeah, and I was like, what?
Okay. Well, I've written
cool.
to Jackie Wan, and hopefully we'll be doing an interview with him soon, as well as to Ultimaker to send him our thanks and regards to putting out such an excellent model, and hopefully people can download it. I probably won't, because it looks like it'll take many man hours, but hats off to them. It's very cool when people can take their artistic and engineering skills and convert it into a prosumer or a consumer 3D print. So that was my next item. So why don't we move on to you?
All right. So my next one is just another kind of a fun little news item. This one is 3D printed robotic birds of prey are undergoing trials. This is happening. Where was this again? I'm trying to remember. Where was it located? I wanted to say it was in California somewhere. But they are designing these robo birds. This is robotic controlled robotic birds with realistic appearance and weight of a real bird. And basically, this is to help birds learn to avoid the active hunting grounds of birds of prey, because bird numbers are dropping. They want certain birds to stay out of bird of prey's area so that they don't, basically get decimated, because the bird of prey populations are going up, while the other birds, the preyed on birds, the meal birds, are getting taken out. So they are making these robo birds that look like birds of prey, and they go and fly them around so that those other birds don't actually get eaten. They go somewhere else. So just kind of an interesting.
Yep, totally agree with that.
Yeah, so pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, well, my next item is, let's see where we're at here. It's what they call a Helium polymer teams with Eastman chemical to create a new type of XT copolyester that, let me bring up the screen, which is very, very interesting because it does a few things that a lot of people have complained about. One, it creates a fairly durable material that provides the benefits of ABS and PLA, but then makes it odor-free and what is it called? Styrene-free. So it's an eco-friendly type product, and yeah, it tells you down here the positives. And fewer ultrafine particles, which is something a lot of people have been talking about in the news, and that both PLA and ABS emit, and essentially these are particles that can irritate your sinuses. I know they do mine. Like you, Chris, I have a Delta printer right next to me. Actually, I have two of them about 2 feet from me, and having that stuff, and I know by the end of the day, even though it's a sweet smell, printing in PLA, I still get an irritation. So this would be interesting. Plus, it appears to be FDA compliant, which will compete well with the PET Plus type materials. However, this company is based in, not necessarily this one, ColorFab is based in Europe. So I was going to go ahead and order some, went out there, there was a discount, but I found out here they have this here is 44.95 euro, but you can get a translucent version for a little cheaper, like 39. But the actual DHL printing fee was almost the same price. So that was pretty pricey. So I contacted Nicole, who's the representative, and asked them, since this is an Eastman Kodak company, why is who's going to be supporting this, or the distributor here in the United States. They're looking into it. Currently, they do not have anything, so they'll get back to me when that actually happens. But again, another material out there that people can move to, and this is available both in 2.85 millimeter as well as 1.75. So depending on the type of printers. So that, it's up to you. But if you live in Europe, you might want to check it out. Obviously, shipping will be a lot cheaper than heading it off to. But if you can afford, this is essentially you'll be buying material for twice that, and I don't know if it will be worth that. So hopefully it'll hit the United States soon.
Yeah, I've been working on a project recently with a friend of mine in Chile, and exploring sending him some 3D prints all the way down to Chile, and he lives in a place called Valparaiso, and it's, I think, the third largest city or something in Chile, and insane to ship to Chile because it's at the end of the world. And he says that if he orders from eBay with the free shipping option from China, it takes 3 months. 3 months to get to him. And so when I priced out a package, a little 2-pound package to send him, it was between 40 for snail mail that might take weeks or a month to get to him, or FedEx was like 130.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
I've not talking about my Four Eyes product, but I do have people from both Australia as well as Canada who are asking if I will ship to them. So
Right.
it's not cheap, unless you go ground. It's interesting how the Chinese, with their ships that come back and forth, that they're able to put containers together and minimize their cost. A lot of times for free through eBay and Amazon. So
yeah. So, and for those of you that are interested in logistics, I do a little bit of work for this company called Matterform. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they are working on third world logistics solutions using drone technology, aerial drones, and for medical applications is where it started from. But you can go watch a really interesting TED Talk about logistics on Matterform's website. So just Google, or I think is it Matterform? No, Matterform is the 3D printer, isn't it?
yeah, I'm about to say, that's interesting, Chris.
It's matternet.us. If you go out to matternet.us, you can watch a really interesting TED Talk by the CEO of the company, and I do quite a little bit of work for them.
Well, make sure you send me a link, and I'll make sure it gets in our show notes.
Yeah, cool. So my next news item here is an acquisition by 3D Systems. Yesterday they announced, or 2 days ago they announced, and they acquired LayerWise, which I've actually gotten to kind of hang out with them before. I think it was some guys from this company. Yeah, it was one of the guys working on this technology. LayerWise is a metal sintering, basically technology company, and here's a little bit about them, and here's their announcement on the 3D Systems webpage. But what they do is they have a way of generating lattice structures inside of. I actually got to handle a piece that had one of their lattice structures. They've been researching this technology for some time now for DMLS parts. And what they do is they can generate a lattice structure that's just as strong or has 99.98% of the density, but a fraction of the weight, um, by creating a specific geometric density pattern inside of these parts. So they're using it for medical applications. As you can see, they created a jaw for the people watching on YouTube. They created this woman. They replaced her jaw with one of these that was a super lightweight but a medical grade fit part.
Okay, so it's not a printer or a technology per se. It is an algorithm used to reduce the weight, but keep the structural strength. Is that what I understand?
Exactly. It's basically the intellectual property for specific lattice structures in conjunction with DMLS.
Yeah, I
So
think we've talked about that either on air or off air, and they were originally making it available for people to download. So
yeah,
I guess
yeah. I met one of the guys down. I'm trying to remember the show I was at. I think it was the Additive Manufacturing User Group, the AMUG show that was down in Costa Mesa a couple of years ago, and he had a bunch of these little lattice structures in a box, and he was showing them off at the. I got to sit next to him at lunch, and kind of talk with him, and the guy is the technology is pretty amazing stuff because you can essentially. So here it is. Here's the actual quote. For the last 6 years, the company has been building, innovating, and adapting their laser sintering technologies, which can fabricate objects with a 99.98% relative part density, comparable to conventional metals, but at a fraction of their weight. This is
okay.
pretty
So it
interesting.
is. So it's more than just the algorithms. It is actually a laser sintering metal process.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Okay.
it's part of the it's not only the algorithm, but it's the actual process on how to do it. Uh,
Okay.
so 3D Systems acquired them. So that's pretty big news. So we can expect to see some, kind of significant DMLS applications coming out of 3D Systems in the next year or so. I would say.
Yeah, they're really ramping up trying to bring a lot of materials. As you're probably aware of, their last quarter wasn't spectacular. So hopefully they can ramp up. So my next item, I'm kind of the VR guy, and there are a couple of ways to create 3D parts. You can print them, or you can display them on a screen, or as we're finding out, you can use like an Oculus Rift or some type of VR goggles. And then Samsung just announced their VR goggle that you put in their new Galaxy Note 4 into to provide something similar, and they are working with Oculus Rift. So this is becoming something, but part of the problem is you can visually see something, but wouldn't it be neat to be able to put your hand out there and touch it and get some type of haptic response or feedback? And this is what this Japanese company has done. They've created a product. In this case, it's kind of a button, but essentially you hold that in your hand and you move it towards the screen, and it will give you the feeling that you've actually pushed on something, to press something. And they're making this both in a button. Here's another example of him working with it. But also you can make it into a stick or a pin, but essentially you would wave that in front of you, and it would give you some type of response, as though you had touched something. So very cool. There's another company, I was hoping to have it beforehand, but maybe I'll bring it up next week, who's come up with some gloves that literally provide not only hand but finger response. So it'd be interesting if these guys kind of work together. Maybe I'll buy them all and put them all together, but essentially your fingers would have haptic response in 3D space. And then there's another company that we've talked to, the STEM system, that you wear these RF type devices on your body that knows where your body location is. So essentially you can immerse your entire body and your hands as well as touch and feel things in the market. This will be a boon for many markets.
Yeah.
And we'll just leave that one alone. But obviously,
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing you said. Yeah, you can squeeze things, whether it's round or a stick-like object. When you said that, I was like, we'll keep this PG.
Yeah, that is the case. So, yeah, but obviously it is a very cool product, and or actually it's not even a product yet. It's a prototype, but we are moving forward with it. So, I'm seeing this as the possibility for companies to be able to present their objects. I know we both work with clients, and they'd like to see what we're working on. But a lot of times we don't want to put it into print because, one, it takes a lot of time and it costs materials. So if you can show them a lot of things beforehand, that sometimes reduces the possibility of getting something that they can't work with. I'm looking forward to a lot of this coming out to make what a client or an individual from around the world can see is accurately possible that you may be working on, as well as designing with it. So, do you have anything else, or can we move into products and projects?
Yeah, let's work. Let's move on.
Okay, you go first.
Okay, so my project, I had a couple little projects this week. One, I finally put on I got an all metal hot end for my Rostock Max. So I threw a all metal hot end on there, and I've been having some jamming issues with it. So what I did is I figured out that if you boost your retraction settings up from what you normally have, if you're running J head or similar head to that, you need to boost your retraction settings. So I'm running about 5.5 millimeters per second or 5.5 millimeters on the retraction, and that seems to be taking away. It's got a larger throw. So I actually had to custom fit a bracket and laser cut some pieces out. So I just designed them up and whooped them up in SolidWorks and sent them over to the laser and had them cut out, and made a nice little all metal hot end adapter for my Rostock Max. So I'll hopefully put those online later today. And yeah,
You can show us, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Here I can show you the piece.
This is show and tell.
Yeah. So
Hi, my name is Chris, and I'd like to show and tell my all metal end.
yeah, and the other one that I've been the other one that I've been working on is let's see here. I can show this. So it's pretty simple. Just a little all metal hot end adapter plate. So I didn't have anything this thick, so I just double cut two pieces of it's like a fiber board, you know. So and
But you did this on your laser.
yeah, just cut it out on my laser, I was pleasantly surprised how it was. I got it done in one iteration, which is pretty rare, you know. So yeah, and then my other project this week is Creation Workshop runs the software for the DLP SLA printer that we both just
The little RP.
the little RP, which I am thoroughly enjoying.
You got something to show us?
Not really right now. I'm mostly working on coding new vats and exploring new vat ideas with Brad Hill, the creator of the little RP. So him and I got some quotes for thermoforming them, and I also have been exploring glass vats that I ordered from Carolina Scientific, they're out of North Carolina, and so I've been coding vats mostly, and I need a print server, but the Creation Workshop unfortunately doesn't have a remote server functionality yet. And I think they're going to be working on a Raspberry Pi image to have a remote print server using Creation Workshop.
Yeah, that I've been working with Steve as well. We both purchased the little Acer tablet, and he actually has gotten it up and running, and it works wonderfully, and you can now buy it for about $150. Acer just came out with some new models.
Okay, so that's because I've been trying to find, because basically you need dedicated hardware, because you need a dedicated graphics unit to output to the projector, Meanwhile, you need to be able to control the computer, so you need to have two monitor outputs on whatever you're using. Well, the Raspberry Pi is a cheap alternative. It's a great little unit. Some people, I don't know of anybody that actually has been able to um, successfully run the projector off of the Raspberry Pi or run one of these DLP printers, because basically there's only one HDMI output and then there's a video out. So you could potentially do it that way, but I wanted to be able to control it from another computer to remote in. So what I'm doing is configuring the Raspberry Pi with VNC, so I can control it from my workstation over VNC. So tap in to it remotely, and then the main output being the projector output. So I'm trying some different methods, but and you said the Acer, it's an Acer?
Yeah, it's the Acer Iconio W4, and they may have a new version of the W5 coming out. You can buy it now for about 150. But you may have to wait a little bit for that price drop. Right, currently it's 200, but it's supposed to be dropping down to 150. That's for a 16 gig version, but if you're just going to use it for this, it's more than adequate. Has a micro SD card, but more importantly, has a micro HDMI port, so that you can use a separate, and Steve has actually verified it. It does work. The only caveat that we're working on right now is it has only one USB port, but you can get a USB hub. The problem is, even though the USB hub works flawlessly, you cannot charge it. So we're going to have to come out with a hub that we modify so that it will charge it as well as act like a hub. Obviously, you don't really need anything other than to provide the USB connection to the Arduino board that controls a little RP. And I've actually worked with a couple of other hubs. They do have a USB hub that also includes an micro SD card, which could be interesting. But more importantly, as you said, remote. It has a full Wi-Fi capability. I think it's dual band, so both 2.4 as well as 5 in protocol. So it's fairly fast, and is a full Windows 8.1. It is not a professional. It's only a 32-bit, so you'd have to find a third-party VNC or remote function if that's what you want to use it for. But it does support two monitors, and it will drive the projector, and that has already been verified.
So let me ask you this: the ASO, the Iconio, does it? You're saying the USB out is actually the charging port for it?
It is correct.
So the input is also an output?
Oh yeah, most USBs are that way, correct. But it also provides and a lot of them do this. They provide the 5-volt. I don't know, yeah, about 5-volt supply back into it for charging purposes. In the past, some of the larger tablets had a separate charging. They got away from that because you required a special jack, but I wish they would have provided two. But we're going to work on that and come up with an option. In fact, I have another USB hub that may be able to do it right out of the box, so I'll look into that. But it seems to be working well, and both of us are moving forward with it. Hopefully by this weekend, cross fingers, I will be able to work with it. But Steve has already verified that it does work, and his software works flawlessly. In fact, I don't think he minds if I mention it, he's making a touch enabled version of this, so you can actually use the tablet itself to run his software, the Creative Workshop, directly from the little tablet. So this, I don't know. Once you add a lot of things to the little Raspberry Pi, you're looking at $75, in fact, up to $100, depending on how elaborate you want to make your setup. And like you said, though, it only has a video output as well as an HDMI, and that's the newer version of the Raspberry Pi. The older version does not have the HDMI port. And like you said, I don't know if you can control both. VNC would be an option, or some other remote functionality. But I don't know if anybody has done that. I don't have it up, and I'm not going to talk about it, but it does look like there is a company that's creating remote print software, and I funded them on Kickstarter, and I should have something soon, and I may be able to talk about it next week.
Yeah,
so if you don't mind,
Octoprint has FDM software, so you can remotely control using G code. So you can send G code over, and they have an image, and all you have to do is put the image on your Raspberry Pi
Yeah.
your Raspberry Pi SD card.
That's not this one, and this is somebody that we've talked to before, and they
Yeah.
actually it's the people GrabCab or something. No, who's the
GitHub.
Git? No,
Yeah, the
not
people from
GitHub.
GitHub were
No, not
working
Git.
on. No.
No, it's not GitHub. It's another company that you actually turned me on to. Who? It's not GrabCAD. It's the other one. Uh, Not Sketchfab. There was another one that you can put your models onto and sell them. Do you remember who they
Oh,
were?
3D Go Go.
3D Go Go. They're the
That's
ones
right.
that did this Kickstarter, and they should have something soon. So maybe by next week I'll be able to present it. So let me
Yeah.
move on to my item. My project is, if you remember, I talked about it last week, and that was the working with Dan Kopp. And we do have the interview up on our podcast as well as YouTube. So if you want to hear about how Dr. Dan Kopp works with the arterial laser scanner as well as other 3D products for dentistry, it's up and running now. But we kind of did an experiment, and we're actually still moving forward with it. And that is, let me bring it up. Hang on a second. And that is taking the arterial scan system, creating a scan of my teeth with the cavity that had been cleaned out so that I could then create a negative volume impression and then create the cavity. I'm not cavity, the filling. And this is the results of that, and I think we discussed it last time. So we kind of worked with it a little bit more. We have to make sure that it's tight, that it fits in there. But this is the results of it. And what I will do now is that you can't see it on this model, but it does. There is another layer that you need to compare to the upper part of your upper portion of your teeth. Actually, there we go. This is the way it is. The lower portion here has to be assessed so that you can determine bite. So he has done that, and I could put these two pieces together. When they came through, even though I changed their absolute reference, I just left it back to the relative reference. And then what I can do is take this tooth or this filling here and remove the portion that is part of the bite so that it conforms directly with this tooth below it. So this is kind of neat, and we're kind of excited about it. I will have something printed by this weekend to give to them on Monday. They'll send it off to a lab, and then they will verify its fit into a model they've created and print it in gold. Actually print it. They'll cast it in gold alloy, and then by the end of next week or maybe the week after, I will have this in my mouth. So there you go.
You're
Doing
gonna
my
have
own.
a 3D printed grills, yo.
So that's mine, and then my product is, let me drop that down and go back to my screen. The Makerbot Replicator 2, as we talked earlier in the show, has worked out really well for me. It's one of my better printers, so it's sad that their Generation 5 isn't meted up to needs, but I think it's because they're using some new technology. Well, one of the things I've noticed is that it wraps it in that Teflon tape. Well, the Teflon tape is now shrouding, and the problem is, you're probably aware of it, if you don't have this tape to secure the heating element, then you don't have the hot end as hot, or it's not as consistent. So you can have some problems with the filament not extruding properly or erratically. So I was on eBay and I found this, which is I don't know what the type of material, but it's kind of a rubber, but high temperature rubber that fits over it to provide insulation, and then you wrap it in the Teflon tape. So it actually will prevent dissipation of heat, so that it contains it more and that you have more stable temperatures on your hot end. So we'll see how that works. The other thing that I bought, eBay is a great place for a lot of 3D parts. If you haven't tried it already, you should. If you notice, this is a tip for the hot end, and I want to replace it. Not that it's necessary, but this one supposedly is made out of a material that allows it to extrude easier. Have you seen any of these, Chris? I can't remember exactly, but it supposedly it's a low flow type tip, or yeah, I don't know if that does that make any sense what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, yeah. So that's I have played with these a bit. They're I think they're Teflon coated on the inside, right?
That's what I read as well, and what it does is it prevents the filament from binding, and it allows it to flow a little easier, which obviously is good. You want the the least amount of pressure as possible. I don't think it's as important on my replicator too, because it seems to work fairly well. I'm more concerned with my Ultimaker, which because it uses a larger filament to begin with, it's more of a 3 millimeter type. It really has some problems sometimes over a period of time of consistent flow. So I may want to change out the tip on that one, and I've done it already, and it's just a brass tip, so I may try something like this with that as well. So that's pretty much my two items. My only rant for the day. um, Windows sucks. No, I've seen it in other, heard about it in other podcasts that some people with one of the latest updates in August, at the end of August, was causing people's machines to literally fail. And I'm thinking, and I have several machines and none of them had any problem. I'm thinking, oh, I wouldn't say the lucky one. They were the unlucky ones. No, I had a laptop that I hadn't used in a while, and I fired it up, and I needed it the other day, and guess what? It got on Windows 8, they've disguised it, but it was the blue screen of death. And what it comes to be is that there's a font cache system driver that Adobe and a few others do not create direct fonts. They create aliases to them, and this new update crashed the machine. So what people were doing was deleting the cache file. Well, that didn't work on me. So finally, luckily, I could boot into safe mode. I turned off that particular system driver and was able to boot up, load the proper updates, and now it's working fine. So if you're having that problem, don't go immediately and try and rebuild your system, because you'll lose everything. And if you're like us, you've got tons of software on it, and it would take days to get back to where you were before. So there are some alternatives that you need to look into. So that's kind of it for me. We were hoping to have some guest crashes, but they're in London right now, probably doing something a lot funner than being with us. So I can't blame them. And then one other thing I'd like to bring up is that if you go out to our website, you'll see a little donation can. You know, if you like what we're doing here and you feel that you can spare a few bucks, you can buy some 3D coasters. 3D coasters, they're actually beverage coasters. You can buy them either 4, 10, or 20, depending on how much you want to give, anywhere from 15, 20 to $30. We'll take anything, though, so head out there. And we'll even take food. No, just kidding. So please head out and help us out there. I'm also putting this in the front to remind people that you know, we do take donations, and to keep moving forward. Maybe help Chris out with a better USB amplifier for his mic. But don't know. Anything else, Chris, before we wrap it up?
Nope, that's it. So thanks again to our listeners, and we'll see you next time on All Things 3D.
All right. Bye.